And with us right now, we've got Anna Choi. Anna, you are the CEO of Conscious Business Coaching. You are found on the web at annasunchoi.com. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, if I'm looking at your website, you refer to yourself as a business energy coach for conscious entrepreneurs and business leaders. And I know you have a very, very great, you have an incredible origin story of like how you got to this position. Would you mind sharing that with us?
Absolutely. So I was a broke art major with zero connections and experience and had my first business as a financial planner of all things. And within a couple years, was grossing six figures by 25, but was completely burned out. And so I fell like on a chair one day from exhaustion. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm burned out in my early 20s. How's this going to work? This is not sustainable. So that became the impetus and search to really find something where you can make lots of money and not get burned out. Then fast forward, I ended up selling that business to another advisor after 5 years and became a stay-at-home mom. So then I was there starting my family. I was on sabbatical, figuring out what made my heart happy and, published a children's book and traveled the world and was super happy. But because we were on one income, and at this point, a couple years in, I wasn't working. We were on food stamps. So we were broke.
Wow.
And I realized, okay, you need both. So we pivoted. After 2 years in, I was like, I am done being a stay-at-home mom. I want to go back and work. My husband quit his full-time job, so he became a stay-at-home dad. And at that point, I was a sole breadwinner with a house, a spouse, and a kid to support. And so I did my second business, which was event consulting, and eventually landed in the tech industry with very nice retainers and so forth. But again, we were running the equivalent of like 4 weddings at the same time on different timelines all the time, nonstop. So I got burned out again in my early 30s. So finally, I made, my son finally went to kindergarten, and I was like, okay, husband, you gotta get a job, which helped things. And then I finally started my passion business, I would say, which is conscious business coaching. And so for the last 3.5 years, we've scaled and grown that. We were 67,000 in debt and on food stamps to now being debt free and like maxing out retirements. And I grossed 6 figures last year, but took 9 weeks off. So it's all, possible to really create.
Yeah. Well, you don't get to that level without helping a lot of people. And so obviously you bring a lot of value. And one of the things I really want to chat with you about is, this concept of energy. And I think that we've all felt, maybe especially this year, because, I think for us, like my family, we've always had summer vacations where we go up, we go to Michigan, we go to, my family's up there. We end up going all over the Midwest, or we fly out somewhere. We did none of that this summer. So, if I'm being pretty transparent, like I'm missing that. Like I can feel that I had no vacation. And so totally. I love what I do, but there's still, I think, a side of us that absolutely needs that recharge. Can you share a little bit about that concept of recharging and giving ourselves breaks and that sort of thing?
Yes, absolutely. I just did a TEDx talk on this yesterday on discovering peace in chaos. So really, before the pandemic even hit, right, it was, there was so much noise, and not everybody has the budget or the interest or the ability to go to like a silent meditation retreat or a vacation abroad to get that recharge. And so what if, and then you have to come back home anyway, right? And then it's kind of jarring to go back into the rigmarole. So how do you create moments, like micro moments of peace day to day? And if you think of peace as not a destination, it's a habit, then creating and cultivating those habits day to day can maintain that recharge throughout your regular, working days.
Yeah. Well, so right now, Anna, so if I'm feeling a little bit of exhausted, how can I get my mojo back? Like, I feel like I'm doing all right generally, but I'm still kind of like, I don't know, some mornings I'm like, okay, time to make the donuts again. Right. And so how do we reset?
Yes. So any sort of high performers, right? You're going to have some sort of routine or ritual. So I'm curious to ask you, like, do you have a morning ritual that you do normally? Is that still being maintained in the new situation that we find ourselves in?
Well, what goes into a morning ritual? You tell me, and I'll tell you if I'm doing it.
Okay.
So here, let me share this. During the summer, so now my two boys are in high school, and so they're now having to wake up at 7 a.m. Now during the summer, I was kind of rolling out of bed, 8:30, 9 o'clock sometimes. And then, bam, I'm right into it, with my meetings usually start at 10. And so, no, wasn't giving myself enough time. So even though I didn't necessarily want to, like now I'm back up at 7 a.m. every morning and I just have much more time. So, for me, the biggest thing is, I definitely take my doggy for a walk around the block. Usually my wife is, we do that together, we chat. Now, that I have more time, I shift my exercise to, if it's on the Peloton or, out doing something else, like I do that in the morning now. And again, I wasn't really excited about saying, okay, I'm going to wake up earlier and start doing this. You know what? That act alone has been super, super helpful. Now, granted, we're only talking 3 days as of when we're recording this, but so ask me in a few weeks and I'll let you know if I've kept with it. I suspect I will.
Excellent. You're hitting it head on. So the number one thing that I often work with people on is sleep, because what time you go to bed is going to determine how robustly you naturally wake up. Right. So when I talk about morning rituals, you're going to be more enrolled in doing whatever that is that refuels you. So what the critical component in a morning ritual is that you are nourishing. It's something that nourishes your soul. So sometimes working out can feel like a drudgery, or doing a certain whatever you're going to do. It's got to be something that you're like looking forward to, that makes you go and grounds you for the whole day. And so morning ritual can be as short as even a minute or 5 minutes. Ideally, I like to take up to an hour. 30 minutes is like my minimum. 2 hours is like a lot and delicious. An hour is long-term, very, very sustainable. But 30 minutes can do it as a minimum. So what that looks like is you can create, I give myself little 5-day challenges, 7-day challenges. So I did like 21 days of 20 minutes of meditation. And then after that, I switched up to like a sleeping tiger posture, which is a Korean-based martial arts yoga move where you're on your back, kind of look like a cockroach, but I listen to really inspiring, tapes and things as I'm in that position. So I switch it up. Sometimes I'm doing 103 like bows, but whatever I'm doing, that's the anchor. That's the thing I can do every day. And there's a big difference when you're doing consecutively, or else you start over the count, or just versus ragtag, do whatever. We all know what that feels like. It doesn't feel good and you don't feel productive. But when you can commit, just notice the difference of how grounded you can feel.
Yeah. So on your website, you talk about identifying energy drains. What are energy drains?
Yes. So it's going to be different for each person, but you want to look both on the outside and the inside. So I love this question. I just ask, what drains you? And typically people answer, the first thing they always say is like their partner or spouse. That seems to be very common, whether it's a business partner or a personal partner, but not in a bad way. It's just like, there's conflicts sometimes, especially with us more working remote together, it's just a different situation. But it doesn't have to be, it can be sometimes just, I had a client that with the news, it was just, she wanted to be up to date, but my goodness, it was just completely draining and triggering and reacting. So it could be some outside things, but also could be inside, because people are dealing with more than they have to with layoffs or deaths or whatever. So a life circumstance can be something that then drains you, and you want to grieve, or you want to just be angry or whatever, but you don't have space to do it. So we just stuff it down and keep moving. If you're able to allow that, right, then you can be on a better path for peace from that energy
So,
drain.
so if it is something like family drama, or if you feel like, or maybe it's health, or you're out of a job, and you know, you can't immediately change that circumstance, what do you do?
Yes. So the first thing is really to accept that it's happening. It's
Mhm.
more than not just being in denial, but embrace it. Embrace whatever that energy drain is, whatever that negative thing is, and then allow it. So we have this really great exercise you can watch in my TEDx talk. We actually go through it, but it's you just notice the actual sensation in your body. You have to name and identify what's that unwanted emotion that you might have or pain in your body as a result of this circumstance. And then when you tune into your body and figure out, okay, what's the color, the shape, the texture, the movement, it's really interesting what people say. They'll be like, oh, it's a dark blue churning ball, or it's a spiky red thing in my throat. And
Yeah.
then you think about another part of your body that feels really great. And typically it's like warm and tingly and golden. And you meditate on that. And this all takes, just a couple minutes as I'm explaining it. Then you go back to that same feeling, and often it'll dissipate. Like that red spiky thing is now like a liquid yellow pink, or it sometimes disappears, or that churning ball settles. So again, that's all just one example of a way you can not just embrace the chaos, but allow whatever drain or circumstance is happening. And then once you can do that, you have a choice to then listen within. And like I said, you can do, moving meditations or different exercises, but then when you listen within to your own inner advisors, you'll get the answer of what action to take next or not to take.
Yeah. And so what is I'm curious, Anna, your opinion on, I know a lot of people, they have, obviously they've got their morning coffee that they need, or maybe they're slamming energy drinks, maybe they're using supplements, or then maybe after work, they're like, okay, now I need to decompress. So then they go for their evening wine. What's your opinion of all of these other things that we can use?
So do you mean like, if you're in that situation, what are ways that you can then create more energy for yourself?
Well, right. And so if the goal is, either on either side, right? So it'd be trying to get wound up energetically. And
Yep.
so, slamming lots of caffeine.
Yep.
And then after work, maybe it's the decompress and like, I
Right.
need to leave that all behind. And so, now, folks might be reaching for, alcohol, wine, whatever, to
Yep.
decompress. And to try to wind down. So I guess I don't want to say, because it sounds bad, but like we're managing our energy chemically. I've got no judgment on it, but I'm curious your perspective on this.
Yes. So personally, I don't drink any caffeine, and if I go to bed on time, I pop up at 6 a.m. and there's nothing like that feeling. And so I am very careful what I put in my body. I said hesitate sharing that only because I know a lot of people may not be able to do that right now. I want to be able to offer them ways to do that. But when I just want to say, in that state, people always say, gosh, you have such good energy. And it's all natural. Like I haven't drunken coffee in like 20 years. Like I don't have, like, I sometimes, everything I do is decaf if I do tea maybe, but
Wow.
I've never had to use an alarm clock. Like, I don't want to say never. I totally get off track. I'm not perfect at all. And if I go to bed on time, that's my big one, because if I open my laptop, I might work super late, right? But if I go to bed on time, then imagine just like a kid again, bursting out of bed because you're just ready to tackle your day. There's no wind up, and then therefore no wind down. Because when you do get on the chemicals to manage it, then again, it's kind of double the work, because it gives you the quick fix, but long term, you have the crash at the end of the day, and then now you're training your body a particular way. If you can master sleep, going to the bathroom, maintaining your gut health, like some basic things, you will naturally be so alive anyway and be grounded. So anyway, that's what's possible when you start to wean yourself off. So if you are in a pretty heavy, I had a client that was, especially during tax, she was an agent, insurance agent, that during open enrollment period, it was like tax season for a CPA, just nonstop, 24/7 craziness. And did that whole rigmarole you were just talking about, the coffee and then the wine at the end of the day, started over. And so with her, she just there was no known break during that 3-month period, like at all. So we first thing is designed either one day or family trip that she hadn't taken vacation in a while. We got that in the calendar first, which gave her the reward of knowing when it would end and that she'd be able to relax. And then we also worked backwards to integrate what refueled her, not like literally as a drink, but with actions. And so for her, it was, she created a fitness walking club. She loves to thrift shop, and she started all these fun things that allowed her to naturally unwind and decompress. And in her last open enrollment period, she even had a competitor think she was out of business and be like, why are you like in a choir right now? How is that possible to have that much time? Yeah. And she was like, my business coach. But anyway, so you just can create little habits and respites that allow you to replenish ongoingly.
Yeah. Anna, can you share maybe some of your favorite tips for sleep? I know, look, I'll be very frank. When I lay down, it's almost always going to be about an hour before I actually fall asleep. I won't say this is always the case, but very typically, I'll be using my iPad for a while. But I've had those cases where I lay down and man, my brain is still going. And, I've kind of, and it's been that way as long as I can remember. I remember in high school, laying in bed for like just 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and just staring at the ceiling, like, I wonder when I'm going to fall asleep. And then, it's as a consequence, then, it's really difficult waking up in the morning. This isn't always the case. But I'm curious what you would advise for someone that has kind of that monkey brain that's going crazy when they lay down.
Absolutely. So there's so many things. So I'll just highlight a few key things.
Yeah.
So number one, I would ask, do you have blue lights installed on all your devices that when sunset sets, right, the blue light stops?
Oh, that matters. Yes.
Okay. So that's just an easy step one. Step two is looking at your last 2 hours of the day before you typically go to bed. Yeah. Are you eating on a screen? And if you're doing any of those two things, it's going to delay your bedtime by another hour or 2 hours. I mean, it's just like inevitable because it takes that much time for the brain to just settle down and process, generally speaking. So again, this is not prescriptive for everyone. You got to find your own rhythm. But in general, from personal direct experience of testing this out and with clients, like that's, if a lot of people eat late. So then what happens is all the blood is going into your gut to digest. And then there's like a critical period between 10 and 2 when your body's working on your liver and other parts of your body. And so if it's busy, like, because you gave it extra work by just feeding it food, right? It has to work on digesting now, and it can't work on the immunity and all the other things it would normally do when you're sleeping. So if you're giving it more work right before bed, right, that's going to also delay or impact, I should say, how well you're able to give your body time to do its deep sleep recuperation body repair. I do want to say disclaimer, I'm not a doctor.
Right, of course.
I don't have the scientific peer-reviewed independent study to pull out regarding this. I just do what works. But anyway, so that's the second thing, is to make sure you don't eat like a little tiny snack's okay, but I'm talking like a meal, or get on the screen where it's triggering you, whether it's Facebook or news or emails, which can be hard, right? Because 2 hours is a lot. So if you can't do 2 hours, try 1 hour. Can't do 1 hour, at least half an hour, right? Something that will allow your brain to transition. And the third thing is then the actual exercise. So there's 3 exercises I recommend. I can't really demonstrate to you on the floor, but one is called toe tapping. So you do rollbacks where you're just on a fetal position and you just roll backward and you massage your spine, and then do that like 10 times. And then you can do toe tapping. So if you just lay flat down on the ground, and then with your toes, you go like this. And with your heels in, you tap your big toes to your little toes. And you move not just your feet, but your whole leg. And when you do that, all that hot energy monkey mind goes down to your core into your legs. And I'm serious, it'll burn. You'll be like, oh my gosh, my legs are getting so tired, so hot. That's a good sign, because that means your head will cool down and calm down. So mostly in Western culture, we have hot heads and cold guts that make it hard to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And in Eastern culture, right, like these are philosophies, you flip it. So it's water up, calm, cool mind, fire down into the belly. So that toe tapping helps that. And the last thing is sleeping tiger, where now you can accumulate the energy on your back with your hands up and your legs at a 90-degree position with your feet up. You can just imagine with each breath, energy coming in and out.
Yeah.
Anyway, so if you do that series just for like 10 minutes, that'll help.
Yeah, so you could do that. Correct me if I'm wrong. So you could just, so I've done that where, you just kind of scoot up to the wall and put your legs up the wall. Is that what you're referring to?
You want to, I know I can't really show you.
No,
so
right.
You just get on
your website. I'm sure you demo this somewhere.
Yeah, you can get on your back, and then you can, you just lift both your legs up so they're like this, and that's your back. So this is your back, and then your legs are like that. Shape, like a 90-degree shape.
So it's just like you're sitting on a chair that's fallen over.
Yes.
Okay, for our audio listeners, you're laying on your back, sitting in a chair that's tipped over. Now you're just laying there.
On your back, and you flex your feet up like antennas, and then you put your arms up like this. So you look like a dead cockroach or something.
Yeah, okay.
All like right. That.
Well, this is great, Anna. Thank you so much. So when folks go to your website, and again, that's annasunchoi.com, where would you recommend they kind of get started?
There's a media resources page or link at the top that they can go to. The best thing though is, if you want to just learn more about your energy drains and where you are and where you want to go, right on the front, you just click, there's a button that says apply, and you can book a time for consults, and then from there it's comped. I give this only if you're interested, because you got to be willing, right? But you book a time, there's a survey, and then we just have a conversation. And by the end of it, you can see where you've been, where you're going, and what are the best next action steps to get there.
Well, you have a YouTube channel with a ton of videos on here too.
I do. That's lots of free resources.
Energy TV, which you've got linked up when you click on resources and media. Looks like you demo a lot of what we've been talking about, so you can continue there. Well, this is fantastic. Again, Anna Choi, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.